ready? I'm about to ring the bell. We ready? Is that it? Gibbs? Ready? No. Good afternoon and welcome to the Rotary Club of Fort Worth. Today is Friday, June 7th. Man, we got a big crowd here today. This looks great and we have an exciting program for y'all. I'd like to start it off first with the invocation by Pastor Charlie Johnson, the Executive Director, Pastors for Texas Children, followed by the national anthem played by Henry Borbola, Vice President of Sierra Bank. Charlie, lead us in a nice prayer today, would you? He's Baptist.
Let's pray together. Oh God, we do thank you for this day, for the conviviality and joy that we're already experiencing with these beautiful people. For President Kirk and all the service he's given our club, for President-elect Rebecca, we give you thanks. These leaders who don't have time to do this, but nevertheless find that time so that we can all be lifted up and lifted to your service in this great city. For food which strengthens our bodies, we give you thanks for those who have prepared it. We remember especially this day those who have given their lives in the service of freedom and liberty, this country. We pray that we would be inspired by their example to go and do likewise, to give ourselves away in sacrificial service on behalf of others. That's the meaning of life. Forgive us our pride, our arrogance. Thou hast given so much to me, give one thing more, a grateful heart. Not thankful when it pleaseth me, as if thy blessings had spare days, but such a heart whose pulse may be thy praise. Amen.
Thank you.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you both, gentlemen. Both your prayer, Charlie, and the anthem, Henry, remind me that yesterday was the 80th anniversary of D-Day, the day that U.S. forces, British forces, and others stormed the beaches at Normandy, and in the words of Ronald Reagan in a speech many years ago, not as aggressors, but as liberators. Thank you to all the veterans in the room. We acknowledge your service, and we are eternally grateful for the freedom that that service has given us. I'd like to bring up John Burke, owner and president of Quantum Executive LLC, for our visitor welcome. Come on up here, John.
Good morning. Yes, or good afternoon. I would like to read our guest today. Please stand up when I call your name. If you're on Zoom, of course, you can remain seated. Mike Distelhorse with Chris Kobler. April Rodriguez coming with Jim Austin. Nick Dumbald with Ed Macklin. Colton Purcell from past President Rachel Marker. Kevin Chukotsky with Ed Macklin. Leslie Batvitsen from Michelle Krim. Amy Howell with Brendan Harrington. And last with Garrett Hadley with President Kirk Driver.
Yes. Thank you very much, John. Appreciate it. Thank you, John. All right, so to all our visitors, Rotarians, you know the drill. For all of our visitors present, we have this thing called a four-way test. As Rotarians, we use this four-way test as a filter for everything that we think, say, or do. If it doesn't meet this, then we try not to think, say, or do those things. So if you would, please, everybody recite along with me. Number one, is it the truth? Number two, is it fair to all concerned? Number three, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And number four, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And now in our club's tradition, we're going to set that aside for just a moment. You journalists will appreciate this. This is what we call the newscast. We use that term very loosely. So please, I'd like you to help me welcome Mitch Reitman, principal of Reitman Consulting Group. Come on up here and give us the news.
Thank you, President Kirk. Thank you, President Kirk. Well, in addition to being the last-minute newscaster, I'm also the program chair, and I want to thank the Fourth Report people for doing the program today. I want to quote Gore Vidal, who said, half of Americans don't read a newspaper and half don't vote, and unfortunately, it's not the same half. First for the weather. It's hot out there. It's so hot that Congress installed a fan on the debt ceiling. It's so hot that I saw a funeral procession pull through a Dairy Queen. But seriously, I said this in last year's newscast, I'm repeating it again today. Some real news. The 19th is Juneteenth, and the holiday can be summarized in this quote from Harriet Tubman. I had crossed the line. I was free, but there was no one to welcome me to the land of freedom. I was a stranger in a strange land. So welcome to the Fourth Rotary, where there are no strangers. So back to the other news. Of course, the biggest news this week was that a jury voted to convict Donald Trump. Joe Biden called him to congratulate him on finally winning a popular vote. After the verdict was read, Trump was booked and fingerprinted. When the deputy asked him what his middle initial J stood for, he said, genius. And several Republican House members were asked why they didn't vote to impeach Donald Trump 4 years ago. They responded they believe babies should be carried to full term. And this week marks 5 months before our presidential election. And when voters were asked to name a candidate who polls well with women and Hispanics, is pro-Israel, is concerned about drugs, corruption, and climate change, 95% picked Claudia Sheinbaum. Ms. Sheinbaum made history this week by being the first female Jewish president of Mexico. Many Americans said they wished that the elections in the U.S. were more like the Mexican election. When asked to explain, they said, because the Mexican election is over. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin was in France yesterday to commemorate the 80th anniversary of D-Day. A reporter accused the United States of being imperialist and said he would prefer that we stayed out of the Eastern Hemisphere. Mr. Austin asked the reporter if he could repeat the question in German. When the reporter said, "Of course not," he said, "You're welcome." Hunter Biden was on trial for filing a false document this week. His father told him he was a huge disappointment, to which Hunter replied, "I beg your pardon." Experts say that the testimony about his womanizing and multiple affairs hurt his credibility with female jurors. I mean, women just don't like this stuff. On Tuesday, he got into his car, and the GPS lady wouldn't even talk to him. In a telephone poll of Texas voters, 80% said they support a bill in the next legislative session to legalize marijuana. Of course, 100% of those polled were sitting around the house on a weekday afternoon with nothing better to do than to talk to a stranger on the phone for 5 minutes. The Bluebonnet nudist camp opened just 50 miles north of here in Alvord last month. Someone has already drilled a hole into the fence around the camp. Wise County Sheriff's deputies are looking into it. And finally, Red Lobster closed 100 more locations this week. They blame their financial issues on all-you-can-eat shrimp specials. It seems that their customers got a little shellfish. The bankruptcy filing seeks to get them out of leases all across the company, leaving landlords boiling mad. And finally, the weather calls for possible thunderstorms or tornadoes this Sunday, but don't worry, if it wasn't for the weather, we'd never be able to end the newscast.
There you go. Thank you, Mitch. Thank you, Mitch, as always. Very good. All right. Time for announcements. First up, Becky Fetty, Director of something in membership. Of what? Where's Becky? Marketing, thank you. Marketing and membership, DFWI, Inc. Come on up.
Thank you, sir. Mitch, you're always a tough act to follow, but I appreciate that. So in all seriousness, though, next Friday is World Blood Donor Day, so I'm here for my annual announcement about our blood drive. We've again partnered with Carter Blood Care, where every drop counts in making life-saving differences. Carter Blood Care will be at Burnett Park. It'll be the blood van that'll be parked on 7th Street from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Did she get, yep, the slide? You can scan the QR code there to sign up in advance, or the walk-ins are also welcome. And every donor this year, they're doing a special every Friday, actually, so if you can't come next Friday, find another Friday. They're giving away each donor a $20 e-gift card. And they're actually like really good gift cards. They're Amazon, Target, Lowe's, Starbucks gift cards. So if you donate blood, you get $20. Your generous donation could be the lifeline for a friend or neighbor in need, so spread the word, and next week, come down early before Rotary. I hope to see you in Burnett Park. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Next up, Chris Jordan, founding steward, Electroacoustics. Come on up, bud.
Thank you. The highest form of recognition in Rotary that they can bestow on a member is the Paul Harris Fellow. It's presented to a Rotarian or a member of the community who has made an outstanding contribution. The Paul Harris Fellows Program was established by Rotary in 1957 to show appreciation and to recognize individuals who contribute or who have contributed. President, you know, I had a horrible AD today, and I'm just AV day. It's all working. I'm rattled. I'm sorry. I don't mean to do this to our guest, but Randall Howard, if you'll come up here. So. We got the whole AV system working about 30 seconds before it all went on. So Randall Howard was one of our Rotary RMBA winners the first year, okay? For his construction business, how he serves the community, how he mentors men, how he provides jobs to men, how he takes boys on trips and mentors boys. Howard does an awful lot for the community. But then the year after he won the RMBA, he said, I want to be a sponsor. And not just a sponsor, but one of the top sponsors. And then he came back the following year and said, I want to be a top sponsor again this year too. That's $10,000, people. So the past winner. So this is a man that supports our community by pouring his life into people. And so with that, we present you the Paul Harris Award. Very good.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
All right. To all of our Rotarians, the Paul Harris Award is traditionally given when you've given to various Rotary International funds, the annual fund being the primary one, to the tune of $1,000 or more. So every Paul Harris Award you see is traditionally $1,000 or more, but our club occasionally, for exceptional service, will also honor one. But I want to tell you real briefly what that money does. So this morning, you know, we had a couple tornadoes up north of here last month. And if y'all recall, just a few months ago, we gave a gift from our club to the district's disaster relief team to put together a trailer to go out and serve in disaster zones. Got this morning. Rotary District 5790 Disaster Relief, Denton County deployment. Your District 5790 Disaster Relief Team in its first deployment responded to Pilot Point last week to help in the aftermath of the recent tornado outbreak. This experience has been a valuable learning opportunity, equipping us with insights about the deployment process, communication protocols, and inventory/volunteer management, ensuring our preparedness. 27 volunteers worked almost 175 hours on behalf of the district. Our friends at the Lake Ray Roberts Rotary Club appreciate our efforts, and the citizens of Pilot Point were very grateful for our assistance. It goes on and on to tell us everything they did, but I wanted to share with you the gifts that you make come back to us, and they end up turning into help for those in need. So thank you for your generosity in supporting that fund. Next up, grants. Thank you very much. Next up, Chair Judy Youngs, President, CEO of Wish with Wings. Tell us about the grants that were given away. Come on. You're next.
Yeah, just join me up here if you would. Okay, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Our first grant goes to Union Gospel Mission in the amount of $5,000 for operational support of children in the Union Gospel Mission homeless shelter. Receiving the check for the organization is Dr. Charles M. Walford, CEO. Joining him is Jessica Chacon, Child Enrichment Clinical Therapist, Marshall Jordan, Grants Manager, and last but not least, Don Schischler, CEO Emeritus. Our next grant goes to the Fort Worth Report in the amount of $5,000 to provide recording equipment for reporters for community meetings. Accepting the check is Chris Kobler, publisher and CEO. Joining him is Mike Disselhurst, whom you just was recognized a minute ago, and Jody Newton, corporate and community relations. So congratulations, Fort Worth Report. last grant goes to the Shaken Baby Alliance in the amount of $2,000 to provide office supplies and Reality Works brain cerebral arteries model. Receiving the check is Bonnie Armstrong, Executive Director, and joining her is Maribel Neal, the Accounting Associate. Congratulations. We could have a round of applause for all of these organizations for all the good they do in our community. And I want to say thank you all, your members, for your support of the endowment fund and its various offshoots. Without your support and your donations throughout the year, these grants would not be possible. So thank you all very much. Thank you, President Kirk.
Thank you very much, and congratulations to all the grant winners this year. All right, next up is Miss Maddie Compton, Secretary Maddie Compton, retired federal prosecutor with a couple first and second readings. Come on.
Good afternoon. We have one first reading today. Zoran Luttrell, Director of Business Development with Creative Office Furniture, Inc. His classification is office furniture, and his proposer is immediate past President Sean Snell. If no written objections are received in the Rotary office by June 14th, this proposal will be given a second reading and voted on by the club. We have 5 second readings today. The proposed members are Nick Dumball, Engineering Consultant, All Risk Engineering, Classification Engineering Consulting, and his proposer is Ed McLinn. I move his election subject to attending a new member Rotary information session.
We have a first, we have a second. Second over here, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. He is hereby elected into the club. Welcome.
Carol Kibbers, Senior Vice President, Human Resources with Benny Keith. Her classification is food and beverage, and her proposer is also immediate past President Sean Snell. I move her election subject to attending a new member Rotary information session.
Got a first, we have a second. Second over here, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. She's hereby elected into the club. Welcome.
The third person is Cecilia Marugo. Her title is Associate Professor at Tarleton State University, Fort Worth. Her classification is higher education, and her proposal is Rachel Capua. I move her election, subject to attending a new member Rotary information session.
Motion second right here. Boy, you're quick moving that one. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. She's hereby elected into the club.
Our fourth proposed new member is Laura Faulkner Pritchett. Her title is Account Executive with IR Company. Her classification is Unified Communication Systems, and her proposer is Don Click. I move her election subject to attending a new member Rotary information session.
Motion, we have a second right here. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. She's hereby elected into the club.
And finally, we have Dylan Smith, Managing Partner at Smith, Bachman, and Ribbett Construction. His classification is construction, and his proposer is Dr. Joe Michaels. I move his election, subject to attending a new member Rotary information session.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second right there. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. He's hereby elected. Welcome to you all into the club. Thank you. All right, love seeing that. Next up, got 3 blue badge presentations coming up here. Courtney Garvey, Cynthia Odom, and Katie Wari. Come on up here. Let's get those swapped out. All right. Congratulations, Courtney. You're right there. Thank you, Katie. I'll take that. Thank you, ma'am. And thank you. All right. The rest of you red badgers out there, get your points in. Let's get these swapped out. All right. on to the main event. Chairperson of the day, Chris Cobbler, founding publisher and CEO, The Fort Worth Report. Come on up here and tell us about our guest, sir.
All right, will do.
Thanks, buddy.
Hi, everybody. I just want to thank you so much for the grant that we just got. It's for our Documenters program, which you'll be hearing a lot more about in the Fort Worth Report later this year, but it's all about improving civic participation across Fort Worth and across Tarrant County, and you're all a big part of that. And I want to thank all of you just for how much you've welcomed me into the Rotary Club. It's an amazing group of people. I just want to thank you for that. And so by way, we'll get right to the program because one of the people who have made this such an amazing group. I'm honored to be moderating our program is J.R. Labby, past president. So I will just get right into it and have our guests come up. Sonia Cisneros, Where's the Whiskey? And of course, Wes Turner, who needs no introduction, but we'll get rolling. Thank you so much, J.R.
Chris? Grab a chair.
Been Chris? Oh, thank you. Yes, they are. Well, welcome. Be delighted to be in front of all of you today, to be able to moderate this panel about something that's near and dear to my heart, media. It's that one. I'm delighted to be here. I don't need no stinking technology. We don't for this. Hello. First, let me introduce these people real quick, and I'm going to start, ladies first, with Sonia. So Sonia is the Fort Worth Report Director. She's the Director of Development, and I believe I first met her when she was a freelance writer for the Life and Arts section of the Star-Telegram, when I was slogging away on editorials and columns which weren't anywhere near as pleasant as what she was doing. Sonia has built her network and her knowledge of the philanthropic community through stints at Fort Worth, Texas Magazine, Lena Pope Home, and the Modern Art Museum, and she brings that network and lots of energy to the Fort Worth Report. Chris Cobbler, most of you know, he is the founding publisher and CEO of the Fort Worth Report. He got his bachelor's in journalism from the wonderful University of Kansas, Rock Chalk. We actually had the same copy editing professor, John Bremner. Yep, we did. Chris started his journalism career as a reporter in Topeka, Kansas, and literally worked his way to the top of the newsroom leadership ladder through 4 decades of editing and publishing stories that mattered to the people and the communities where he worked. Wes Turner, such a delight to be seated next to this man. He was the publisher of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram back in the days when printing that paper was like printing money. He still has a hand in the media game as a vice president of strategic planning for the Newhouse papers. He brings his experience and knowledge to the Fort Worth Report's board of directors, who are focused on reviving locally reported and locally written journalism. Personal privilege I'm taking, Wes was the best leader I ever had in my 25 years as a journalist. His vision, his integrity, and his heart let us know in the newsroom that he always had our backs, no matter what we were writing about and no matter who we were pissing off, which I did regularly. Thank you very much. He also gave me one of the greatest gifts of my professional career when he did not promote me to the editorial director's position. And despite my protestations otherwise, I wasn't ready, and he knew it. And he saved me from being a failure and gave me time to learn what I needed to learn to be able to take that job a couple of years later. And I am forever grateful. Thank you, Wes. So we may have some folks in the room today who aren't familiar with the Fort Worth report, so I thought I would start with what some of its 55,000 subscribers are saying when they make their monthly contributions. Awesome in-depth reporting on local government agencies. Fair and nonpartisan news services are critical to being an informed citizen. Deep dives into issues that matter through a nonpartisan lens. I recently moved to Fort Worth. It's a great way to find out about my new committee. Comments like this were repeated, and I read 304 comments on somebody, a monthly donor that's actually filling those out is sort of unheard of. But over and over, you heard the importance of local journalism focused on our community. So Wes, I'd like to start with you being a very keen watcher of the state of the media, which I would call enlightened self-interest, but what does it look like, the perspective of state, local, and community journalism in America today? What's happening?
Well, local journalism, which I'll focus on the most, is really challenged. The economic models that allowed us to be so profitable at the Star-Telegram have been turned on their head. We were an advertising-supported business that had subscribers. Subscribers were about 20% of our revenue, and 80% of it was advertising. Today, about 65 or 70% of their revenue is advertising. is circulation, subscription. The advertisers have fled to social media. The advent of the iPhone in 2007 made news a mobile application, and we are the buggy whip industry. So it's an economic problem, and about that same time, there was a lot of consolidation in the industry, and heavy debt. So when McClatchy bought the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, they paid $4+ billion, and that was in 2006. And the bottom started falling out in 2007. So McClatchy collapsed under a mountain of debt. Today, most major newspapers are owned by hedge funds. Gannett is the only one that's not a hedge fund, but they are so deeply in debt that they have the same problems. So the economic model is broken, and they have eaten their seed corn by getting rid of their journalists and destroying their product in the process. And the loser is the local community. The winner is organizations that no longer have anybody asking the questions that you would ask if you were able to attend those meetings yourself. So that's the biggest challenge that we all face. Media is fragmented now. Television, same way, totally fragmented. Now you're cutting the cord. So you have to buy so many audiences. And the last thing I'll say is internet advertising is a commodity. The Star-Telegram had immense pricing power, and media today has lost its pricing power, and you cannot make enough money just selling local advertising anymore. It's impossible. You can't cover the cost to do it.
Wow, thank you. That's sobering. It's me. So Chris, I think it's safe to say that people are familiar with sort of the KERA business model of broadcast journalism, but what does that look like for the Fort Worth report? How does your business model work?
Yeah, when it's important, it comes up a lot, the business model for, as Wes so accurately described, the traditional business model for supporting local journalism is gone. It is basically gone. It's a print newspaper going to be around for maybe a few more years, I'd say. Nobody knows exactly when, but so we're figuring out a new business model for supporting local journalism because it's so vital to our democracy, to our country, to our community. And I just have to start by saying give so much credit to Wes and to others on what he calls the coalition of the concern, the civic and business leaders who came together to form the Fort Worth report. They saw what was happening and said, Fort Worth is booming. We're a great community that's been focused on solutions and coming together to figure that out. If we're gonna wake up and have no newspaper one day and no way to come together as a community and solve the issues that we have, what do we do about it? And to their credit, I still just marvel at that. And Fort Worth report stands out among this whole movement across the country, where this is happening across the country, local nonprofits like ours. But Fort Worth stands out among all of that group because there were business and civic leaders behind making it happen, not a laid-off journalist. It was the community really coming together to make it happen. And I want to just emphasize that point. We're all lucky to have Wes and everybody else on our board and all the people who aren't on our board who were civic leaders who came together to make this happen. And what they discovered, and they didn't know how to figure this out either. I mean, it's a relatively new industry, relatively new business model, is that yes, it's similar to public broadcasting, definitely community-owned, member-driven. That's an important part of our revenue, is all those 55,000 newsletter subscriptions we're up to already, which is sort of a phenomenal growth that stands out around the country as well, that a certain percentage of those people will give at some level, whatever level they're capable of giving. They'll give at, the average gift is $200 a year, but obviously there are individuals who can give a lot more than that and do. But that membership, community-driven piece of it is huge to our business model. But we were started with philanthropy, and philanthropy will always be important to us. The Burnett Foundation gave us an original grant of $1.25 million. Ann Marion, literally on her deathbed, said, this is important to my community. I want to leave this legacy. I want to start the Fort Worth Report, and we'll be forever grateful to her for that. So philanthropy is a big part of our business model as well, along with membership, and then some degree of corporate advertising and event sponsorship. As Wes pointed out, it's never going to be 80% of that revenue, but we do think we have a valuable audience, and it can be, a significant 20-25% of our revenue. So if you think about it, it's in those four buckets: advertising, event sponsorship, individual giving, which is membership, smaller dollars, and then individual giving, what we call major gifts, 5,000 or over, those two buckets, and then philanthropy. And that together, we think, can create a very sustainable business model for supporting local journalism, but it's vastly different from the business model that Wes and the glory days when I worked for newspapers and we were printing money. We didn't know they were the glory days because we were grumbling about them, but those days are gone, and they're not coming back. And I think most people, national studies show, so a lot of people don't get it, that local news is struggling financially. So I feel like most people in this room get it because we've had lots of conversations about it, but it's an important question to ask and an important question to answer, and I just thank everybody in here for all the support you've given already.
Pass this lowly mic around the room. So Sonia, heavy weighs the mantle of the development director of any nonprofit, and particularly for a media company that is meant to be a nonprofit. Many of them aren't. Star Telegram's not meant to be, but it is. So Chris touched on this a little bit, but talk about your grantors and your subscribers, the demographics of who's supporting you, how you engage people in the mission so that they will become one of those monthly contributors.
Sure. I'm so glad my mic is working for now. I'm going to avoid the echo in my ear, but just say I'm so happy to be here with all of you. And yes, I think the mantle is heavy. It's there's a real sense of urgency around the work that we're doing and supporting our nonprofit newsroom. I mean, as far as demographics, it's hard to pinpoint. I think that's what's so interesting to me as someone in development, is that what we're seeing in our newsroom support really does reflect our full community. People of all walks of life who are saying, I mean, even, I'll just share this story. I mean, I walk to Black Coffee from our newsroom on the east side of town almost every day. I have a bad addiction to coffee. And as I was walking back to the newsroom one day, a gentleman who owns the building next door to us, he was outside, cleaning up, and he just said, "Fort Worth Report," and literally was cheering me on the street. And I stopped and had a conversation with him and said, you all have built trust in this community in a way that I did not think was possible. And so for me and my approach, and I think in what all we do, we are working to listen and learn first and foremost, and build trust and educate. I think it's really easy that, I'm guilty of this myself. I will pay for entertainment, Disney Plus in my household, but we have monthly subscriptions that are kind of easy, and we don't think about the support that's needed in a journalism setting. To produce our news is free to read, but it's not free to produce. So there's a huge education component, which is my number one goal, is trying to reach the other 2/3 of our community who haven't heard about us yet. And that's a big job. It's, I think any chance that we get to welcome people to our newsroom, that's always a goal of mine. If you've never been to the newsroom, if you know someone that would like to see our reporters in action, please come in and visit. Our door is always open. But I think understanding that we are a working newsroom in Tarrant County, we don't exist solely on the internet, is a huge, huge task in education.
Great, thank you. Wes, you alluded, Chris alluded to your powerhouse board, and you really do have an amazing group of men and women who are really supporting you. Kelly Harton-Hallman's managing partner, Miriam Ald, entrepreneur Jonathan Morris, Mitch Witten of Visit Fort Worth, John Lumpkin of the Schieffer School at TCU, Rachel Navahar Phillips of the Rios Group, and Bill Meadows, who's a man with too many titles to even list them. All right, young people, ask the old people in the room who Bill Meadows is, and they will tell you. So how do you respond to people today who are skeptical about who's influencing the coverage of any media platform? So how do you respond to those folks who think boards like that, boards full of influencers, got their fingers in the pie on what stories you're covering?
I'll also add David Porter and Paul Greenwell.
Yeah, I do.
The latest. We have a wonderful board, and that board has personally committed over $300,000 to our $1.5 million goal that we're trying to raise to match the AJP national grant that we got. It's very simple. Our motto is noses in, fingers out. We don't get involved in any news decisions. We don't see any news stories before they're published. We have no input on it. Now, I can call Chris and say, hey, I heard something such and such going on. You might want to look into it. But that's it. I mean, our hands are out of it. And we make sure every board member understands. We give them in writing what their board responsibilities are. And I've never called a reporter. I've talked to Chris. And we stay out of the day-to-day operations. We open doors and we raise funds, and because we're committed to providing free, fair, and local news to this market. And that is the thing I enjoy most about being involved in this. And I'm hoping it makes a difference. I do want to point out, while we do have 55,000 newsletter subscribers, only about 2,500 of them send us any money. So we've got a lot of work to do to make sure that the community understands that reading us, even though it's free, good journalism costs a lot of money.
And that's a good segue to my next question for Chris, because you are amassing an impressive lineup of reporters and editors in that newsroom over there on Rosedale. Some of them it's a good bench, and some of them are really heavy hitters, but not all of them are from this community. And I'm sure it's always a question of what are the pros and cons of having come-heres as well as local grown in your newsroom?
Yeah, the most important thing is that all of our journalists, all of our staff live here, right? That they work here, they live in Tarrant County, that they know the community. And it's great to have a mix of people, honestly. The best is to have people with deep, deep roots in Fort Worth, like Wes, and like Sonia, whose family has been here, is it 3 generations, or? Yeah. Or longer, or Bob Francis, who everybody knows has been around forever, or Jody, who's been in the community forever. Those people who can provide context, but they're also, young journalists newer to the community who have great credentials, who have that nose for news, who know how to find people who are going to tell you the stories, the nuanced stories, and those are great people to have on a staff too. As you know, JR, I mean, what you're really looking for all the time in the right organization is a culture of great energy and experience, right? You tilt one way or the other too much, you can get off balance. I remember I started my hometown paper at the Topeka Capital Journal years ago. I was like bouncing off the walls with so much energy. And we had a lot of old staff who'd been there forever who were pretty set in their ways, honestly. It was tilted too far in terms of this is just what we do, this is how we do it. And so you've got to figure out the right mix. And it's always a work in progress. You never feel like you've created the perfect product. I haven't put out the perfect newspaper yet, digitally or otherwise. But by listening to community, by having people who are really committed to our mission, I think that's what's critical. They understand the mission. Everybody is so bought in on the mission that Wes and our board bought. And I would just add to what Wes answered in terms of he's definitely not in the business of telling us what to do with the newsroom at all. And I would encourage everybody to look at whatever website you go to, look around at what sort of editorial independence policy they have, what sort of correction policy they have, how transparent are they about who they are, because it's harder than ever for people to have news literacy, to really know. We're getting bombarded by information all the time, but that doesn't mean it's good information. And so I just encourage you to look, and you'll see it on our website. You'll see our editorial independence policy, you'll see our mission, you'll see our corrections policy, all that information you need to know whether you can trust us or not.
Thank you. So we're back to, we're talking about the business model a little bit, and how do you sustain this, Sonia? What do you say to someone who says, will it always be free?
I do get that question a lot. And yes, I mean, to an extent, anyone who accesses our primary channels, our coverage is free. Chris and I just spent time in Minneapolis a couple of weeks ago, where the whole topic of our convening with the American Journalism Project is built to last. How do these nonprofit newsrooms sustain themselves forever, for my daughter? And it's a question we ask ourselves every day. I think that what Chris touched on in terms of diversifying our revenue and really working to create that equal pie of corporate advertising, philanthropy, major gifts, and anyone who gives even less than $1,000 a year, that all is poised to work really well. And I think we have an amazing partner in the American Journalism Project who not only provides this financial support, but also all of the coaching strategies, a community. That's one thing I took away from when, you meet people virtually and you have conversations throughout the year, but then actually getting to convene and sit and talk without a screen in front of you is huge, because you understand that across the country, we're all working towards sustainability and, building something new for our country, something that we all desperately need. And, I have to say, to answer your question, will it always be free? It's like, what if we didn't have local journalism? What if we had none? That would be a terrible thing.
And sadly, we're seeing it all over the country, and in rural America particularly, but small cities they're disappearing. So I have one last question before we open up to the floor, and this is to whomever wants to jump on it. But the word nonpartisan came up as much as the word local did among your subscribers' comments about why they support the report. Talk about what nonpartisan means, and how can I be sure from the outside that it is the real deal?
It's central to our mission and to our success, really. So with the success we've had so far, we're about reporting the news, and everybody I've talked to, and I give again all credit to the board from the get-go, setting that as part of our mission, saying we, in this day and age, what do we need more than anything? Just news we can trust, right? And so we'll never tell you how to vote for an election, for a candidate, for an issue. We'll have lots of election forums and invite you to come hear from the candidates directly. We don't have a traditional editorial section like you'd see in a newspaper because we think it's so critical that you trust the local news, that you trust what we're reporting. And that doesn't mean all of our news stories are perfect again, but the conversation should always be about, was that story accurately reported? Was it fair? Was it balanced? Did it have the proper context? And did I have any sense from reading it what the reporter's opinion was about it? Because the reporter's opinion is really not that relevant to the story, and that's what we're aiming for with every story that we do. And when all of our audience surveys show, and we've had great response through our audience surveys that were fortunately paid for by the American Journalism Project and scientifically done, we're off the charts favorability ratings because people thought we were living up to that promise. People just are cheering us on to try to keep doing that, try to keep building that trust. But it's at risk every story we publish, right? And we look for that because trust is so easily lost. So every story we do, we're thinking about that. We're talking about that as a staff. How do we make sure in this hyper-polarized time that we live in, how do we be as fair as possible with every one of our stories? I mean, I'll let people, I want to hear what the people think about that, but because I could go on that soapbox for a while on that question, because it is so central to what we do. You want to add to that, Wes?
Well, when somebody thinks we do it wrong, we hear from them. I guarantee you. And we want to hear from them. And the first thing I'll do is tell them, you call Chris Cobbler. I didn't think the headline was fair to the story. Tell us about it. We are going to make mistakes. We want those mistakes to be mistakes of omission, not commission.
So who has questions for these wonderful people? John?
Chris, so tell me, when you get a news release, how do you tell whether it maybe is AI doctored up a little bit, not to be quite as factual as what you've heard and received, and how do you handle it?
Yeah, AI is a fascinating question, isn't it? It's going to change our world, but when we get any press release, we take it as a starting point, as a tip. So we feel like it's our job, regardless, to vet it, to talk to the direct sources, to go from there. So AI doesn't really change how we approach press releases. I mean, I think it will change, the news we can trust, and it'll be even more incumbent on all of us to understand where we're getting our news from. I hate that as an answer, but it is true. You really, everybody here needs to really be thinking about what news you can trust and whether it's AI generated or whether it's really been with a local reporter on the scene, looking at, a city council member at a city council meeting and reporting what's being said versus something that's computer created. And we've certainly seen that some of those AI generated stories are just sort of wildly invented.
Gary, and then we'll...
Bit of a compliment. I from time to time, will have a comment or a feedback on a story, and I can email your reporter and hope holy smokes, I hear back from them. I really do, and that's a cool thing. JR used to just blow me off.
She still does.
That's because of his opinion. That's because of his opinion. You folks actually responded.
Was somebody speaking just then? I wasn't hearing anything.
I appreciate that. And that's something we really stress is that, again, being local means answering as many questions we get. The bigger we get, the harder it gets because there are so many more. It's sort of phenomenal how many more questions, so many more emails, all that we get. It's wonderful. But it's at the core. You've got to listen to people who've got concerns or we're not doing our job. Brendan's over here and I met him at Rotary when he had a complaint about one of our stories and it turned into a beautiful friendship, right? But it started with he had a significant complaint about a story, and I listened to it. He listened to me too, and we had a great conversation about a wholly different path forward that we could work together, and that's how we succeed as a Fort Worth Report. It's right there. So I just again give tribute to the community, but. Don's got a question?
Don's got a question, and then...
There's a comment about the growth of subscribers and the growth of the number of reporters you have, and how some of them are covering stuff nobody else is.
All right. Thank you, Don. Yeah, we've been growing at over 2,000 a month in subscriptions. So we started, basically 3 years ago at zero. We're at 55,000, over 55,000 now. Our web traffic, just an individual month last month was 320,000. So over a year, that calculates to about 3.67 million. I mean, it's phenomenal growth. We've got a partnership with the Dallas Morning News that's printing some of our stories and promoting us. KRA, we have our reporters go on air to get a wider distribution of our content too. Because of community support and American Journalism Project's support, we've been able, from our original staff of 6, a little over 3 years ago, to we now have a full-time staff of 22, plus 6 fellows this summer, interns from all the local universities, and if we're producing newsletters every day, sometimes multiple newsletters, whether that's our new entertainment, arts and events calendar, Weekend Worthy, that Brendan knows a lot about, or whether that's our school report that comes out on Tuesdays, or our business report that comes out on Mondays. I mean, we're producing journalism at a level I didn't think we'd get here this fast, honestly, but it goes back to our board and back to our community.
We're going to call it quits because I feel when Sasquatch walks up, you don't even have to look, right? You know he's there. Thank you all so very much for being here.
Thank you to each of our guests. Wes, Chris, Sonia. The Rotary Club internationally, all Rotary clubs, has this big target of eradicating polio. Horrific disease. Back in the 80s, Rotary said, we're going to take this by the ears and we are going to completely remove it from society. We are this close. At the time, it was over 250,000 people a year, new diagnoses of polio. Last year, we had 13. We are truly this close. In honor of your presentation today, thank you for a wonderful presentation. In honor of your presentation, our club is making a donation to the Rotary Polio Plus Fund in your honor, in your name. And we have a few memento gifts. Where are they? Right behind. There we go. We got a token of that for each of you. Thank you very much. I've got a couple of closing announcements. First of all, I don't think we say it enough, but man, these flowers are beautiful. Every week we see these flowers, and I'd like to thank Gordon Boswell for providing the flowers to us each week. So today's international committee meeting has been canceled. The information for tomorrow's services for Richard Knight are available in the rotograph, but I'll tell you right now, I've already pulled them up, and it's going to be at Wrestling Funeral Home, the Wildwood Chapel at 13,005 Greenville Avenue over in Dallas. Viewing is 1 to 2 p.m. tomorrow, and the service is at 2 p.m. graveside immediately after. So I will be there. I know several of you are going. I hope to see a good contingent from the Rotary Club, which was near and dear to Richard's heart. Next week, Jared Howard, CEO, National Juneteenth Museum. And with that, it's going to be a warm one, a little bit of showers on Sunday. I hope you'll have a wonderful and safe weekend. This meeting is adjourned.
Leave me, desert me, I'm yours till I die, so in love with you am I. In love with the night, mysterious, the night you first were there. In love with my joy, delirious, when I knew that you could care. So haunt me and hurt me, deceive me, desert me. I'm yours till I die, so in love with you am I. Love is storm and wind and tide, all the tears your heart can hold. But I look back after loss of love and know the days were gold. I see only shattered skies, not a ray of light to find. But I look back after loss of love, and sunlight blinds my mind. Songs were sung with words as young as May, but in the mist of summer, winter came. A chill blew out the flame. Now the words of haunted songs ring as clear as they did then. Still I look back after loss of love and live to love again. Now the words of haunted songs live as clear as they did then. Still I look back after loss of love and live to love again. can tell that you're feeling down, fed up, about to quit. I know that I caused that frown. I've done you wrong and I'll admit. What can I do to help you to feel good like way back when? Let's work it out. Please don't pout. Let's try this again. If you say that the sky looks cloudy, I'd call it blue. It feels like the world's against us, but that's just not true. What can I do to help us to feel good like way back when? Let's work it out. Please don't pout. Let's try this again. I wanna go back to the time of smiles and holding hands and summer rain and you, when our eyes said a million things and all we did was lay in love and laugh. And I had you. Can't imagine my life without you. We've grown worlds apart. So hop on that shooting star of mine, straight home to my heart. What can I do to help you to feel good like way back when? Let's work it out. Oh, please don't pout. Let's work it out. Please don't pout. Let's try this again. I knew a girl so pretty. Blessed be her name. She came in many colors, dressed up for the game. Sometimes she came in pink and yellow. Sometimes she came in black. Sometimes she came in red and purple. Sometimes she wore blue. I knew a girl so pretty. I knew her all along. She came in so many colors, all dressed up for the song. Sometimes she came in pink and yellow. Sometimes she came in black. Sometimes she came in red and purple. Sometimes she wore blue. Sometimes she came in pink and yellow. Sometimes she came in black. Sometimes she came in red and purple. Sometimes she wore blue. She wore blue. Whatever happened to Melody? She was a girl of my fantasy. And with a sister, sweet harmony, they made my feet go dancing, dancing, dancing all night long. Dancing all night. Soft touch, sweet smile.